Okay, let's unpack this. We're about to dive into a subject that is, well, incredibly prevalent, profoundly damaging, and yet often remains hidden in plain sight: financial abuse within U.S. relationships. You've brought us a really important stack of sources on this research papers, insights from key organizations, and some really powerful accounts from survivors.
Right.
Our mission with this deep dive really is to extract the most vital knowledge from these materials to give you, the listener, a truly clear understanding of what financial abuse actually looks like, the insidious ways it traps people, and crucially, the pathways to finding help right here in the United States.
Exactly. We're going to walk through this complex issue. First, defining financial abuse and getting a handle on just how widespread it is. It's quite widespread.
Yeah.
Then we'll dig into the specific tactics abusers use to control someone's financial life.
Yeah.
From the subtle beginnings right through to the more overt forms.
Right.
Understanding why these tactics make it so incredibly hard for someone to leave an abusive situation is absolutely key. We'll explore the devastating short-term and long-term impacts on survivors.
And the help part is critical.
Absolutely. Finally, and perhaps most importantly, we'll highlight the critical resources available, offering hopefully a roadmap for support and recovery.
Okay, so let's start right at the beginning. What exactly is financial abuse? How do the sources define it?
Well, at its core, financial abuse is a deliberate tactic. It's used within a relationship specifically to gain and maintain power and control over a partner.
Power and control, okay.
Yeah, it involves controlling their ability to acquire resources, use them, or maintain them. Financial resources specifically.
So it's not just like arguing about the bills occasionally. That happens, right?
Definitely not. This is different. It's not just disagreements about spending habits or those occasional money arguments that, are pretty common in many relationships. This is about one person intentionally manipulating or limiting the other's financial life.
To make them dependent.
Exactly. To create dependence and vulnerability. That's the aim.
So the goal isn't just, say, getting rich off the partner, though maybe that happens too. The main thing is control.
Absolutely. Control is the driving force. And the sources are really, really clear on this. Financial abuse rarely exists in isolation.
Okay.
It almost always goes hand in hand with other forms of abuse. Emotional manipulation, physical violence, sexual coercion.
So it's part of a bigger pattern.
Think of it as another critical tool in the abuser's arsenal for maintaining dominance. I mean, if they can control your money, they control where you can go, what you can do, who you can see. It restricts everything.
Wow. And the data on prevalence. It's absolutely staggering. Or one piece of research you included suggests it occurs in, an astonishing 99% of domestic violence cases.
99%.
Yeah.
That statistic alone it's a powerful insight, isn't it?
It really is.
It tells us that if you are looking at a situation involving domestic violence, you should probably assume financial abuse is present. It's almost certainly there.
It's not a secondary issue then?
No, not at all. It's virtually universal within that dynamic. Now, other estimates in the sources do vary a bit, ranging from maybe 52% up to 98%.
That's still incredibly high numbers.
All incredibly high. This consistency really underscores just how fundamental financial control is to abusive relationships.
So the key takeaway here seems to be financial abuse isn't an optional part of domestic abuse. It's practically a defining characteristic.
Exactly. And that leads directly to why it's so powerful, why it works so well for the abuser. The sources highlight that financial abuse is one of the most effective methods for keeping someone trapped.
Makes sense.
If someone is financially dependent, if they lack access to funds, maybe their credit is ruined or they're prevented from working, leaving becomes exponentially more difficult.
Yeah.
It often feels impossible.
Right.
It's frequently cited as a top reason survivors either stay in the abusive environment or, heartbreakingly, are forced to return because they simply cannot survive financially on their own.
It's like a physical or emotional prison, but built with financial chains.
That's a really good way to put it. Precisely. And it's worth clarifying a distinction sometimes made in the sources between financial abuse and economic abuse. Have you seen that?
Yeah, I saw that distinction. What's the key difference there?
So financial abuse often focuses quite narrowly on money itself, controlling bank accounts, credit cards, income, debt, things directly related to cash flow.
Got it.
Economic abuse is a broader term. It encompasses control over money, yes, but it also extends to controlling access to any economic resource needed for survival and independence.
Like what kind of resources?
Well, it could include food, transportation, housing, even necessities like clothing or medicine. anything you need to live.
So it's about undermining their entire ability to function independently.
Yes, their overall economic security. It's about total control over a person's material existence.
Okay, that's a crucial distinction.
And it's vital to understand that this isn't limited to specific groups or demographics. While we often discuss it in the context of women experiencing abuse, and they are disproportionately affected, men can absolutely be victims too.
Right.
One statistic we saw indicated approximately 1 in 7 men aged 18 and older experience domestic violence, which frequently includes financial abuse.
And it's not just happening in established adult relationships either, is it? The
Yeah.
sources mention teens.
No, and this is a critical point the sources make. Early warning signs can appear even in teenage dating relationships.
Wow.
This really highlights the need for awareness across all age groups. And perhaps most alarming, the materials emphasize that financial abuse can actually be the first sign of dating or domestic violence.
Oh, the first sign, not just something that happens later.
Correct. It might start subtly, maybe seeming like concern or generosity, before it escalates into overt control and potentially other forms of abuse. Recognizing this early subtle manipulation is so key.
That connection, that financial abuse can be the start rather than just a consequence of other abuse, that's a powerful insight. It means the warning signs are often financial.
Which brings us neatly to spotting those signs. The tactics abusers use to exert financial control are varied. They often start subtly and then escalate as the control takes hold.
Like that example you mentioned, the abuser offering to take care of the finances.
Yeah, that's a classic subtle opening. The partner might be stressed, overwhelmed, and the abuser steps in saying, "Let me handle this for you."
Seems helpful on the surface.
Exactly. It's presented as help, maybe even an act of love, but it's a Trojan horse. Over time, that help involves slowly reducing the partner's access to information, account details, or funds until they are completely shut out and dependent.
It preys on trust and vulnerability. Let's break down some of these tactics based on how the sources categorize them. First, exploiting your resources. What falls under that?
Right. This category covers direct interference with the victim's existing money or assets. So it's controlling, taking, or spending their money using their credit cards without permission, outright demanding their paycheck, passwords, or debit cards.
Basically treating the victim's money as if it's the abuser's own property.
Exactly. To control or to squander. Another incredibly damaging tactic here is ruining the victim's credit history.
How do they do that?
Abusers do this by running up huge debts on joint accounts, or maybe accounts they open in the victim's name without permission. They might intentionally fail to pay bills.
Oh, wow.
Sometimes even lying and claiming they are paying them, only for the victim to discover later, maybe when they try to rent an apartment, that their credit is completely destroyed.
And that has such long-term effects.
It's devastating. This isn't just about the debt itself. It's about sabotaging a person's future ability to do basic things. Rent an apartment, buy a car, get a loan, sometimes even qualify for certain jobs. It creates a long-term, almost inescapable financial trap.
That's a devastating long-term consequence designed right into the abuse itself.
It is, and there's often a real sense of entitlement associated with this exploitation.
Entitlement, how so?
The abuser might constantly expect the victim to pay their bills, bail them out of their own financial messes, or even worse, coerce them into illegal activities like writing bad checks or filing fraudulent tax returns.
So they implicate the victim in their own financial crimes.
Yes. They force the victim to be complicit or liable for the abuser's actions. It's another layer of control and potential legal trouble for the victim.
And they interfere with finances under this false pretense of help.
Yes, and it isn't just the subtle opening move, it continues. They might confiscate income the victim earns, maybe intercept bank statements or other financial mail, so the victim is kept in the dark about the actual state of their finances.
Keeping them ignorant.
Right. Or even threaten to falsely report the victim for misusing benefits to government agencies, creating fear of legal repercussions or loss of essential income like disability or welfare.
Hiding assets was also mentioned, wasn't it? And outright theft of identity or inheritance. That seems extreme.
Absolutely. Hiding assets makes the financial picture confusing and difficult to understand, which is especially damaging during a separation or divorce. And stealing identity, property, or inheritance.
Yeah.
Yes, those are extreme forms of exploiting the victim's resources purely for the abuser's gain.
Okay, so beyond just targeting the money someone already has, abusers also go after a victim's ability to earn money in the first place, interfering with their job and income potential.
Yes, this is about cutting off the source of income, making the victim completely reliant financially.
How does that look in practice?
It can be very overt, like just forbidding them from working or preventing them from attending job training or pursuing career
The
advancement.
more subtle sabotage.
Exactly. More insidious sabotage designed to get them fired. This might involve things like stalking or harassing them at their workplace, constantly calling them, showing up unannounced.
Creating disruptions.
Major disruptions.
Yeah.
It can even be causing them to lose their job by physically battering them just before an important meeting or presentation so they can't go or are visibly injured.
That's horrifying. Or physically preventing them from getting to work.
Yes, hiding their car keys, taking the car, forgetting to pick up children from school or daycare so the victim has to leave work unexpectedly. Anything that disrupts their employment.
Just relentless.
Abusers also use emotional tactics here, constantly criticizing or minimizing the victim's job or career choice to undermine their confidence and motivation. They might pressure them to quit.
Using guilt.
Sometimes using guilt, yeah, like claiming the children need them at home full-time, even if that's not financially feasible or what the victim actually wants.
Or even dictating where they can or cannot work, limiting their choices.
Exactly, based on the abuser's preferences, jealousy, or need for control. Another example is forcing a partner to work unpaid in a family business.
Unpaid.
Yeah, with no benefits, no real compensation. It's taking their labor without any opportunity for independent financial growth. Pure exploitation.
Okay, let's shift to the money that's supposed to be shared in a relationship. Controlling those joint assets and resources seems like a major battleground.
Oh, it definitely is. This is often the most visible form of control within the household itself. The abuser takes complete command of all the relationship money,
Ow.
putting it in accounts only they can access or control, and severely limiting the victim's access to funds, even for necessary expenses like groceries or things for the children.
And this is often accompanied by intense scrutiny of the victim's spending, right? Like tracking every penny.
Oh, yes. They might criticize every single financial decision the victim makes, demanding an accounting for every penny spent, requiring receipts for absolutely trivial purchases. It creates an environment of constant financial surveillance and distrust.
With a double standard, I imagine.
Almost always. A blatant double standard. The abuser spends freely on whatever they want, gadgets, hobbies, going out, but then criticizes the victim for minor, often essential purchases, like needing new shoes or clothes for the kids.
So they can buy a new TV, but the victim gets grilled about buying milk.
Precisely, that kind of thing. They also make significant financial decisions that affect both partners without any input from the victim.
Like big purchases.
Big purchases, taking out loans, making major investments, buying or selling property. They simply refuse to collaborate or even provide the victim with access to the overall financial picture, withholding passwords, account numbers, bank statements, keeping them completely in the dark.
Hiding funds in private accounts was mentioned here too, wasn't it? That sounds deliberate.
Very deliberate. They might open secret accounts the victim doesn't even know exist and funnel money into them. A classic tactic is insisting the victim contribute their entire income to a joint pool which the abuser controls.
While they keep their own money separate.
While the abuser refuses to share their own income, or worse, refuses to work or contribute financially at all, leaving the victim to shoulder the entire burden and then controlling the little money that is available.
It's about total control of the flow of money within the household, isn't it?
Yes, controlling the purse strings, forcing the victim to constantly ask for money like a child, asking for an allowance, setting unrealistic allowances that don't actually cover basic needs.
Demanding permission.
Demanding permission for any spending where they themselves spend without consultation. They might insist that major joint purchases like cars, mortgages, even utility accounts are put solely in their name.
Which ties the asset to them legally.
Exactly. Further binding the victim's access and making it harder to leave or claim assets later.
And the sources noted that arguments over money can be a trigger for other forms of abuse, escalating things.
They can escalate very quickly. Financial control is so tightly tied to power that any challenge to it can provoke intense rage from the abuser. This can lead to emotional abuse, threats, or even physical violence.
What other tactics fall under controlling shared resources?
Well, intentionally refusing to pay bills specifically to ruin the victim's credit score, using the legal system itself as a tool like evading child support payments, or manipulating divorce proceedings to financially cripple the victim by hiding assets or dragging out the process endlessly, knowing the victim can't afford the legal fees.
Forcing a victim to hand over public benefits like disability or welfare checks or threatening to report them to authorities is another tactic mentioned. That's pure coercion.
It is. And filing false insurance claims is another way to cause financial harm or create illegal entanglements for the victim, often without their full knowledge or consent.
Okay, let's step back to those broader categories mentioned earlier, economic exploitation and economic sabotage. How do they differ slightly from direct financial control?
Right. Economic exploitation is more about actively damaging the victim's overall economic stability, often for the abuser's direct or indirect gain.
Can you give an example?
Sure. This could involve forcing the sale of the victim's assets, maybe a car or inherited jewelry below market value, engaging in reckless, unapproved spending that depletes joint savings or generates massive debt that the victim is partially liable for, intentionally trapping the victim in debt they simply cannot escape, or even damaging shared assets, like wrecking a car or destroying property out of spite or to exert control.
And economic sabotage. That sounds like it specifically targets their ability to be economically productive.
Yes, exactly. It obstructs their employment and potential for economic growth. This might involve creating a hostile work environment if they happen to work together, withholding critical legal or professional documents like immigration papers, work visas, or professional licenses that are necessary for employment.
Preventing them from working legally or in their field.
Right. Physical or digital stalking that interferes with work or job searching. Or actively damaging the victim's professional reputation through spreading rumors, lies, or causing public confrontations at their workplace. All forms of sabotage designed to make it impossible for the victim to earn a living and become independent.
It's a chillingly comprehensive strategy for control. And as you mentioned earlier, these warning signs aren't just in adult relationships. They're appearing early, even among teenagers.
Yes, this is a really crucial area the sources explored, particularly that survey by Junior Achievement and the Allstate Foundation focusing on teens age 13-18. What they found really highlights the need for early intervention and education. It's quite concerning.
What were the key findings from that survey? What did it show?
Well, the numbers are concerning. Nearly 1 in 3 U.S. teenagers, that's 31%, reported experiencing at least one warning sign of financial abuse within a romantic relationship.
1 in 3 teens, that's high.
It is. And both boys and girls reported instances like a partner preventing them from going to school or work or dictating what they were allowed to buy with their own money.
That's happening at an age where they are just starting to develop independent financial habits and identities.
Exactly. And a significant number, 37% overall, felt pressured to say yes when a partner asked them for money.
Pressure to lend money.
Yes. And the survey showed higher rates of this pressure among certain demographics. 40% for Asian teens, 45% for Black teens, and 44% for Hispanic teens, compared to that 37% overall.
Interesting variations.
And perhaps surprisingly to some, the survey also found that boys reported feeling this pressure more often than girls, 41% of boys compared to 34% of girls.
That challenges some common assumptions about who is vulnerable to financial pressure in relationships, doesn't it?
It certainly does. And nearly a third of the teens surveyed, 29%, reported that a partner did not pay them back money they borrowed, as was expected.
So broken promises about money.
Right. These experiences, while they might seem minor to an adult looking back, are really early indicators of controlling and exploitative financial behavior. Behavior that can easily escalate in future relationships if it's not recognized for what it is.
So where are these teens turning for advice on managing finances with a partner?
Well, the survey indicated that teens trust their parents or guardians the most for advice on shared finances, a strong 61% reliance, which sounds good, right?
Yeah, that seems positive.
But here's the major disconnect. Only 30% of these teens have actually had discussions about healthy shared finances with those parents or guardians they trust so much.
Wow. So they trust them, but the conversation just isn't happening most of the time. Why do you think that gap exists?
The survey offers some potential insight here, too. It suggests parents might not always be modeling the healthiest financial behavior themselves.
Is so.
More than half of the teens surveyed, 55%, had recently heard their parents arguing about money. Fights about spending too much, bills being too high, needing more money, disagreements over big expenses.
The money stress is visible.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And a third of the teens, 33%, felt their parents were spending money on non-essentials instead of prioritizing the family's needs.
Ah, that makes perfect sense. If money is a source of major conflict or seems mismanaged at home, it might be a topic the parents avoid discussing openly or constructively, or maybe the teens just perceive it as too difficult or negative to even bring up.
Precisely. And the result is that teens feel unprepared. A large majority, 62%, agreed that they don't feel ready to manage shared financial responsibilities with a partner. This points to a huge need for proactive education.
A real gap in knowledge and skills. And where are teens looking for that education if it's not consistently coming from parents?
Websites were the most common source they cited, at 56%, followed by school at 39%.
So online resources in schools are key.
Definitely. This points to the importance of making resources accessible online and, crucially, integrating financial literacy, including healthy relationship finances into school curricula. Programs like Junior Achievement's JA Personal Finance 2.0 are specifically designed to fill this gap.
What do those programs do?
They provide tools and discussion points covering both healthy and unhealthy financial relationship dynamics, helping teens recognize those warning signs before things escalate.
That education piece seems vital, which leads us directly into the really devastating impact of financial abuse and why it creates such formidable barriers to leaving.
This is the cruel core of financial abuse, isn't it? It's not just about money, it's fundamentally about trapping someone.
Yeah.
The sources repeatedly emphasize that financial abuse is a primary reason individuals remain in or return to abusive relationships.
Because they feel they have no other choice.
Exactly. The fears are incredibly realistic and immediate. The fear of homelessness, the inability to afford basic necessities for themselves and maybe their children, the complete lack of a safety net. Survivors often describe having to return to the abuser because they simply couldn't secure housing, food, or transportation on their own.
Let's look at the short-term impact. When someone might be trying to leave, or immediately after leaving, what does that look like?
Well, in the short term, the impact is profound vulnerability. Crucially, this includes increased vulnerability to physical violence.
Because they can't get away safely.
Because the person lacks the means to escape safely. If you have no access to cash, no credit, maybe no car, and no safe place to go, devising a safety plan, getting out of the house during a dangerous moment, reaching a shelter, relocating becomes extremely difficult, if not impossible.
And just securing basic needs must be an immediate crisis. Food, shelter.
Absolutely. Food, clothing, transportation, and finding any kind of safe temporary housing become monumental challenges. The sources highlight a really stark reality here. Data from organizations like Free From shows that survivors need, on average, about $1,567 to establish even short-term safety after leaving.
$1,500 just for immediate safety?
Yeah, covering things like a deposit on a temporary place, food, transportation, immediate necessities. Yet the same data shows survivors report typically having only around $10 saved that they can access on their own.
$10 saved?
$10. And maybe less than $300 total they can access independently.
$10 saved compared to needing over $1,500? That gap is horrifying.
It is, and it precisely illustrates why financial insecurity is consistently identified as the #1 obstacle to safety for victims of domestic violence. Without even a small financial cushion, the immediate risks of leaving are perceived, quite correctly, as overwhelmingly high.
And this damage isn't just temporary, is it? The long-term impact sounds equally, if not more, devastating.
It really is. The effects of financial abuse can be incredibly long-lasting. They often span years, sometimes even decades after the relationship ends.
How so? What are the long-term effects?
Survivors frequently struggle with maintaining a steady employment history because the abuser interfered with their work so much. That makes it harder to find stable, well-paying employment in the future.
And the credit damage we talked about, that lingers.
Oh, definitely. Ruined credit scores, sometimes mountains of outstanding debt incurred by the abuser but legally tied to the victim, and legal issues stemming from the financial manipulation. All of this makes it incredibly difficult for survivors to gain true financial independence and build long-term security.
So things like getting approved for housing.
Getting approved for housing, financing a car needed for work, securing loans for education or emergencies all become major hurdles, sometimes impossible ones.
So even after leaving the abuser, the financial damage continues to limit their options and keep them in a precarious state. It follows them.
Exactly. It's like being released from prison, but still being shackled by debt and a damaged financial reputation. The sources also draw a direct link between economic abuse and increased physical danger.
Really? How?
Survivors of economic abuse are 5 times more likely to also experience physical abuse. And for women experiencing coercive control, combined with economic abuse, there is tragically an increased risk of being killed by their partner.
Wow. So the impact isn't just financial, it's literally a matter of life and death.
It absolutely is. The duration of this abuse is also significant. One study found that 8 in 10 women reported that the economic abuse spanned more than 5 years.
5 years or more.
That's a significant portion of a life trajectory spent under that kind of control and experiencing that kind of damage. This leads to worse long-term employment prospects, lower earning potential, and often, tragically, having to give up their home or losing custody battles due to perceived financial instability.
The personal stories shared in the sources really drive this home, don't they? They make it less abstract.
They really do. Survivors describe their healing journeys, explaining the slow realization that the financial harm component, as one put it, wasn't just a small consequence of the abuse, but a deeply damaging element with lasting effects.
It wasn't just about the money.
Not at all. Receiving financial support, whether direct cash assistance or grants, wasn't just about covering immediate bills, though that was critical. Stories highlight how it helped alleviate the deep shame they felt about their financial situation. Shame often directly caused by the abuser's actions and constant criticism.
Practical help was key, too.
Immensely practical help.
Yeah.
Like money for gas to relocate hundreds of miles away to a safer area, away from the abuser's reach.
And moving to a place with more resources and opportunities.
Yes. One survivor, quote, described finally being able to live in a safe neighborhood with reliable access to public transportation, better job opportunities, and access to healthy food, basic things they simply didn't have when trapped in the abusive situation, often in isolated areas the abuser chose specifically to maintain control.
That really underscores how financial freedom is directly linked to physical safety and access to opportunity.
Absolutely. And the TikTok story you shared earlier, while incredibly difficult to hear, powerfully illustrates the extreme violence and danger a partner may face when they attempt to leave a relationship built on control, especially that financial control piece.
Which brings us to the critical pathways: finding help and breaking free. Financial independence is repeatedly emphasized in the sources as not just a goal, but a vital step towards survival and safety.
It really is the pathway to shifting that power dynamic. By regaining control over their finances, survivors regain control over their basic needs and ultimately their future.
So what concrete steps can survivors take, drawing from the resources we reviewed? Where do they start?
Well, first, building financial knowledge seems absolutely key.
Learning the basics.
Yes. Developing a basic budget, learning about money management, these are crucial first steps. Organizations like the Allstate Foundation and Savvy Ladies offer free online tools and educational resources specifically tailored to helping people build these skills, often from scratch.
Okay. What else?
Second, understanding your credit score and taking steps to rebuild or maintain good credit is vital. This directly counters the damage abusers often intentionally inflict.
Right, actively addressing one of those long-term traps.
It is. Saving money is also critical, even if it's just a little bit at a time. Now, if the survivor is still in the relationship, this might require saving secretly.
How can they do that safely?
Perhaps entrusting a small amount to a trusted friend or family member to hold, somewhere the abuser won't find it or know about it.
Gathering important documents is another key preparatory step mentioned. Why is that so important?
Because abusers often hide or control essential documents. Birth certificates, social security cards, identification, bank account information, specifically to prevent the victim from leaving or accessing resources independently. Having copies or originals secured elsewhere is crucial.
Getting a credit card in your own name, if possible, is mentioned as a step towards independence. But the sources wisely caution against falling into debt with it.
Right. It's a tool for rebuilding credit and having access to funds, but it needs to be used very responsibly, especially when finances are already strained. Reaching out to community resources is important for both immediate and ongoing support.
And protecting personal financial information.
Absolutely essential, especially once independence is sought. Changing PINs and access codes on all bank and credit accounts, and absolutely not sharing them with anyone connected to the abuser. That might seem obvious, but it's a critical security measure.
And checking your credit report regularly seems vital too.
Crucial. Annualcreditreport.com provides free access to your credit report from the 3 major bureaus once a year. Checking this lets you see if the abuser has opened accounts, taken out loans, or run up debt in your name without your knowledge. It helps you spot identity theft or further financial sabotage.
Good tip. What about preparing secretly before leaving?
If that's the safest option, yes. Preparing for the future, secretly, by opening a new bank account the abuser doesn't know about, maybe in a different bank or online, or hiding small amounts of cash, can provide a vital safety net for when they do leave.
And seeking support from trusted loved ones. That came up too.
Invaluable. Trusted friends and family can offer crucial emotional support, but also practical assistance like temporary housing, help with childcare, or even small amounts of financial aid to cover immediate needs like food or transportation.
Okay, so those are individual steps. But beyond that, there is a network of dedicated organizations in the U.S. offering vital support. Knowing where to turn seems critical.
Absolutely. And knowing where to turn is critical. We can kind of group these resources by the type of help they offer.
Okay. Where to start for immediate crisis support?
For immediate crisis support and connection to local services, the National Domestic Violence Hotline is a key resource. They're available 24/7, it's confidential, and you can reach them by call, chat, or text. Just text START to 88788. They can connect you to local shelters, emergency financial aid, and legal resources in your area.
The National Network to End Domestic Violence, NNEDV, is another key connector, right?
Yes, NNEDV connects survivors to state and territory domestic violence organizations and local service providers right across the country. They also run womenslaw.org, which provides free, plain language legal information and resources online. And it's not just for women, it's regardless of gender or sexual orientation.
They are finding shelters.
DomesticShelters.org is a fantastic online tool. It's specifically designed to help you find local shelters and programs simply by entering a zip code. Very practical.
For broader emergency relief, shelter, and counseling, the Salvation Army is often a resource too.
Yes. And Love is Respect focuses specifically on healthy relationships and helping identify warning signs, particularly targeting young people. They offer counseling via call, chat, or text 24/7. Text Lovey Eyes to 22522.
Are there resources for specific communities?
Yes, for culturally appropriate support for Native Americans and Alaska Natives experiencing abuse, the Strong Hearts Native Helpline offers safety planning and advocacy tailored to their communities. That number is 1-844-762-8483.
And RAIN Act. That's for sexual assault.
Right. RAIN is the National Organization for Sexual Assault Survivors. They connect survivors to over 1,000 local sexual assault service providers and operate the National Sexual Assault Hotline at 1-800-656-HOPE-HOPE, plus online chat and the Safe Helpline for the DoD community.
What about government resources?
The Office for Victims of Crime, OVC, is a government resource. They can help victims find out if they are eligible for state victim compensation funds, which can sometimes help cover costs related to the crime, like medical bills or relocation expenses.
Okay, shifting to building that crucial financial knowledge specifically, where can people go for that?
Savvy Ladies is great for this. They provide free financial education through online classes and webinars, and they offer a helpline for specific financial questions. The Allstate Foundation also provides free financial literacy tools online.
And organizations focused on employment and independence.
Dress for Success is well known. It empowers women specifically aiming for financial independence, offering support networks, professional clothing, and career development strategies.
Her voice supports women ending domestic violence with education and mentorship, but I think they have a specific focus.
Yes, her voice is specifically for those who have been separated from their abuser for at least 3 months, really focusing on that post-separation recovery and rebuilding phase.
And Richerie.
Richerie trains women who are returning to the workforce after a break, offering coaching, mentoring, and resume help. Very practical skills. And then there are fantastic local organizations everywhere.
Like the example in the notes, Steps to End Domestic Violence in Vermont.
Exactly. That's just one example of the comprehensive free services available locally across the country. Things like 24-hour hotlines, chat support, legal advocacy, programs for children impacted by the abuse, support groups, community education, and shelter or transitional housing options. These local groups often provide the most direct, hands-on support.
And Free From, that survivor-led organization you mentioned earlier, they have a unique approach, right? Focusing on the economics.
They do. They're really notable because they fundamentally view gender-based violence, including domestic violence, as an economic problem at its core.
So their solutions are economic.
Yes. Their work focuses on providing direct cash assistance to survivors, helping them build savings, and importantly, advocating for systemic policy changes. Things like paid safe leave laws, so survivors don't lose their jobs when they need time off for court or relocation, and pushing banks to implement policies that better support survivors impacted by financial abuse.
And their impact is measurable.
Very much so. Their impact data is compelling. They've dispersed millions directly to survivors, reaching tens of thousands of people, and they've been influential in state legislation that affects millions more. It really shows that targeted financial intervention is incredibly powerful.
That's a powerful insight in itself. Seeing financial abuse as a core economic problem requires economic solutions and policy changes, not just individual support.
It absolutely does. And the overall message from all these sources, from all these organizations, is crystal clear. If you or someone you know is experiencing financial abuse, seek help right away. It doesn't get better on its own. It almost always escalates over time.
And this isn't just a private problem happening behind closed doors, is it? The sources frame it as a societal issue with ripple effects. So if we suspect someone we know might be experiencing this, how can we help? What do the sources advise?
Well, the sources advise starting by checking with the individual first about what they're comfortable with. Support should always be survivor-led, respecting their pace, their decisions, their safety concerns. Never push.
Okay, start by listening and asking. Then what?
Then, practical steps can make a huge difference. Offering to help them document the abuse, maybe keeping records of specific instances, denied access to funds, coerced spending, lost job opportunities. This documentation can be vital later on for legal proceedings or financial recovery efforts.
And offering practical, discreet financial help, like holding money.
Absolutely crucial. Offering to hold money for them so they can save secretly outside the abuser's knowledge or control is a concrete way to help provide a safety net.
What about other practical support?
Providing practical support like offering rides to work, to appointments, or to look for housing, or allowing them to use your address for mail.
That seems like such a basic thing, using your address for mail.
It can be huge. If the abuser is intercepting their mail, having a safe address allows them to receive new bank statements, official documents, communication from support resources, job applications, all without the abuser knowing. It helps them keep their emerging financial life separate and secure, free from the abuser's surveillance. These simple acts can be genuinely life-saving.
Okay, so to try and bring this deep dive together, financial abuse is incredibly common, it's insidious, it's a devastating form of control within U.S. relationships.
Right. It's not just some side effect of domestic violence. It's deeply intertwined and often the very thing that makes leaving feel terrifyingly difficult or impossible by undermining a survivor's financial stability, their credit, their employment.
And the impact is profound and lasting, affecting safety in the immediate term and housing, employment, credit, overall well-being for years, even decades to come.
But the key insight, the hopeful insight, is that help is available in the U.S. There's a wide network of dedicated organizations and resources, like the ones we've discussed, offering everything from immediate crisis intervention to long-term financial education and rebuilding support.
And financial independence isn't just a nice-to-have goal. It's presented as a critical pathway to safety, to healing, and ultimately to reclaiming control over one's own life.
Exactly.
Recognizing the signs of financial abuse is essential, both for ourselves and our own relationships, and for supporting others we care about. It's not merely about managing money better. It's fundamentally about having the freedom and the ability to control your own life and make safe choices for yourself and your family.
Which really raises an important question for all of us listening to consider, doesn't it? Given how fundamentally economic stability is linked to personal safety. What steps can we all take, individually, within our own relationships and communities, and collectively, perhaps through supporting these organizations or advocating for policy change? What can we do to not only recognize the signs of financial abuse, but to actively empower and support survivors in rebuilding their lives and achieving true, sustainable financial freedom?
It's a powerful question that definitely stays with you long after you've reviewed all this material. Something to really think about.
It is. Until next time.